Want scary stories? Listen.
Police found a folder filled with death dates inside an abandoned funeral home. Hundreds of names, hundreds of records. But one page forced them to leave the building immediately. The folder contained the name of Officer Daniel Reed, one of the officers involved in the search. Beside his name was a date of death, tomorrow. The next morning, Daniel never reported for duty. That was the moment an investigation began. An investigation that would uncover one of the strangest mysteries in the history of Ashwood. Hawthorne Funeral Home had stood on the edge of town for nearly 40 years. After the death of its owner, Edward Hawthorne, the building was closed, sealed, forgotten. The records were supposed to be transferred to a city archive, but while workers were clearing out old files, they discovered a hidden room behind a wall of cabinets. Inside were thousands of folders. Each one belonged to a resident of Ashwood, living or dead. At first, police assumed they were ordinary client records, until an officer opened a folder belonging to a local school teacher. The teacher was still alive, yet inside the file was a date of death, 7 months in the future. The officers checked another folder, and another, and another. Dozens of living people already had death dates assigned to them. Some were years away, some only months, some only weeks. Investigators began comparing the records with old death certificates. What they found terrified them. Every deceased resident of Ashwood had died on the exact date written inside the archive. Every single one, without exception. Car accidents, heart attacks, drownings, freak accidents. Every date matched. It was as if someone knew the future, or created it. The case was assigned to Detective Mark Sullivan. At first, he dismissed the entire thing as coincidence, but the deeper he dug, the stranger it became. Every path led back to one man, Edward Hawthorne, the owner of the funeral home, a man who was supposed to be dead. Residents remembered strange things about him. For years, Hawthorne seemed to know when people were about to die. Sometimes he would contact grieving families before anyone even knew a tragedy had happened. Most people called it luck. Others called it something else. Mark continued searching. 3 weeks into the investigation, he discovered another hidden room beneath the basement. A room no one knew existed. Inside stood a desk, a chair, an old telephone, and a massive book. The pages were filled with names, thousands of names. Many belonged to people long dead. Others belonged to people still living. As Mark turned the final page, his blood ran cold. There was a new entry, his entry. Detective Mark Sullivan, date of birth, home address, and date of death. Today, not next year, not next month. Today. Mark slammed the book shut and left the room. He told no one what he had seen. But that night, strange things began happening. His cell phone stopped working. The clocks in his house froze. The lights flickered, then died. At exactly 2:13 in the morning, a telephone began ringing. An old landline that had not worked in years. Mark stared at it. The ringing continued. Again, and again, and again. Finally, he answered. For a few seconds, there was only silence. Then a familiar voice spoke. "Good evening, Detective. Your paperwork is ready." Mark froze. The voice belonged to Edward Hawthorne, a man who was supposed to be dead. Mark hung up immediately. He grabbed his keys and drove back to the funeral home. If the archive was responsible for the deaths, he intended to destroy it for good. At 2:47 a.m., security cameras captured his car arriving outside the building. It was the last time anyone saw him alive. When police entered the funeral home the next morning, the building was empty. The book was gone. The archive was gone. Mark was gone. The only thing left behind was his police badge lying on the basement floor. Months later, the investigation was officially closed. No explanation was ever found, but a year after Mark disappeared, a city employee discovered a thin folder hidden among old records. Inside was a single page. Detective Mark Sullivan. Date of death. Yesterday. And beneath it, written in neat handwriting, was another name. A new name, already added to the list. That was when he realized something horrifying. Hawthorne Funeral Home was gone, but the archive was still working.